Compost is tiresome to make. I do this instead. If you've ever tried making traditional compost, you know how exhausting it can be. You start with high hopes, layering your greens and browns, turning it every week, keeping it moist but not too wet, and waiting months on end for something usable. And then, just when you think you're close, you find a smelly, half-rotted mess, or a bone-dry pile that never really broke down. For a lot of us, compost feels more like a chore than the simple, natural solution it's supposed to be. I know because I've been there, sweating over heaps of kitchen scraps, dragging grass clippings, trying to follow all the rules that promise perfect compost. After years of frustration, I finally decided enough. There had to be a better way to feed my soil and keep my garden thriving without devoting half my weekends to babysitting a pile of rotting material. And I found it. What I do now skips the compost pile entirely, and it works with the garden rather than against it. It's cleaner, faster, and requires no wheelbarrows, no turning, no endless waiting. Once I made the switch, I never looked back. And today, I want to walk you through the exact method so you can put your scraps to work in the soil where they belong. The soil does the composting for me. The secret is simple. Instead of hauling scraps to a pile, I let the soil itself do the work. Every bit of food waste from my kitchen, vegetable peels, coffee grounds, tea leaves, eggshells, goes straight into the garden beds. I dig a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep, drop the scraps in, and cover it back with soil. Within weeks, worms, microbes, and fungi have transformed it into rich, living fertility, right where my plants need it. This method, often called trench composting or in-ground composting, is as old as gardening itself. Farmers in many traditional cultures relied on it long before the compost bin became popular. It makes sense. Why create a separate pile and then carry the finished compost back to the garden, when you can let the garden process it in place? It's about less work and, honestly, more results. The beauty of this system is just how much less effort it takes. There's no balancing carbon and nitrogen, no fussing with ratios, and definitely no turning a steaming heap in the summer heat. I don't even worry about having enough material at once. If I've got a bowl of onion skins today, they go in the ground today. Tomorrow it might be carrot tops or apple cores. It's that simple. The soil doesn't mind how small the batch is. It digests it piece by piece. Over time, the whole garden becomes a patchwork of underground compost pockets, each one feeding the roots nearby. My plants grow stronger. The soil stays loose and full of life. And honestly, I haven't had to shovel a compost pile in years. The worms become your compost crew. One of the biggest advantages is how quickly the worm population explodes when you start burying food scraps. Worms just love fresh organic matter in the soil, and they'll flock to every buried pocket. As they eat, they leave behind castings, which are, honestly, one of the most nutrient-dense fertilizers you can possibly add to a garden. Unlike pile composting, where worms often only show up at the cooler edges, trench composting invites them right into the center of the action. And because everything happens underground, there's no smell, no flies, and no attraction for rodents, provided you cover your scraps properly with soil. It builds long-term soil fertility in place. What I love most about this approach is how it gradually transforms the whole garden bed. With each hole I dig and each batch of scraps I bury, I'm adding organic matter directly into the root zone. Over time, the soil becomes darker, richer, and easier to work with. Plants don't just benefit from the immediate nutrients, they're also growing in a living, breathing ecosystem that's constantly renewing itself. Water retention improves, beneficial fungi spread, and the whole garden becomes more resilient. I like to think of it as feeding the soil community instead of managing a pile. This is gardening simplified. If you've been frustrated by compost piles that never seem to finish or take too much of your energy, I encourage you to try this. Don't overthink it, just start small. The next time you chop vegetables for dinner, take the scraps out with you and tuck them under the soil in your garden. Do it again tomorrow, and the day after that. Over the course of a season, you'll notice your plants looking healthier, your soil feeling softer, and your workload shrinking. It's the kind of simple, consistent habit that transforms your garden without draining your time. So if composting has ever left you discouraged, give the soil a chance to handle the job itself. Trench composting has given me healthier plants, better harvests, and more free time to actually enjoy the garden instead of laboring over a pile. If you found this guide helpful, be sure to subscribe to Gentle Herbal Living for more practical, time-tested ways to grow with less stress and more abundance. And if you know a fellow gardener who's tired of chasing the perfect compost pile, share this with them. They'll thank you for it.